this video is clearly, as the name suggests, which I'm sure will draw a lot of, wonderful reactions in people, is about the Bible and its many wonders. But I'm really sick of people. I mean, it's fine if you're a religious zealot, then I to some extent understand, because that's how you're brought up, poor thing. But even regular people who aren't religious, people who aren't bloody religious, referring to the Bible as being divinely inspired, and I'm there like, it's not divine anything. It's built on forgery and compromise. That's what it bloody is, I mean, and I will go over each one individually. First, forgery, since it's the more palpable. The story of Christ is a complete and utter theft of pretty much any solar deity in that region, even some who aren't in that region, but most solar deities will have shocking parallels to Jesus Christ. Now, for more information, I would direct you to a video, because it's more extensive. I'm just going to briefly overview a few things. But the video is Zeitgeist, Zeitgeist, the movie, and if you just put it in on Google search, just put Zeitgeist the movie, it'll show up, and it's a free movie you can watch online. It's it's long, it's 2 hours, but it's brilliant. And though it's a little bit dogmatic, and some of the points, I do have to admit myself, are a bit stretched, it's still very good points and shows shocking parallels and things. The only thing I'm going to bring up is Horus, which is the most obvious of all of them. Horus is the Egyptian god of the sun. He is the son of Osiris and Isis, although technically it's just Isis because some say it was a miraculous birth that didn't involve a father. Do we see a parallel? Yes. Now, some, and the film says that she was a virgin, Isis. She wasn't, at least from my research she was not, because she was married to Osiris, and Horus's birth was after his severance, but that is a different story. And he was born of a miraculous birth, regardless whether you want to call it virgin or not. It was considered miraculous. His birth was heralded by a star, and 3 kings, or 3 wise men, if you will, any term you want to say, came donning gifts to him. Later in life, at the same age as Christ, I can't remember what it was there, he was ordained as a priest of some kind or whatever, or a preacher. He had 12 followers who went around with him performing as he performed miracles. More shocking parallel. The worst, of course, and the most damning is the idea that he was crucified, which crucifixion and the idea of the cross is very, very much pagan. It shows up in many, many polytheistic societies. It shows up in the Egyptian with the Ankh, among other symbols. It shows up in the Celtic circle cross. It shows up in numerous different accounts. Then, that aside, we have the idea of the 3-day pulse and the resurrection of Horus, which, again, this idea of resurrected gods or divinities is not at all from Jewish religion. It is directly from paganist. It is a pagan concept. Osiris is also continuously resurrected during the New Year ceremony. Horus was resurrected. We have other gods in other religions that are also resurrected. In Norse mythology we had, well, he wasn't really resurrected, they wanted to, but at the end of Ragnarok, in theory, a lot of the gods are reborn, one of which was, bloody hell, what was his name? The one Loki killed with mistletoe, bloody hell. Well, him. And we have this concept of gods being reborn and resurrected after their death, but that is very pagan, not at all Jewish, which is what in theory our Bible came from. So we have that wonderful thievery. for the story of Christ, and there are far more parallels, but I don't have time to go into them. And then we have the compromise, which is the idea that everybody seems to think that the people who brought the Bible into one being, which was under Emperor Constantine at the Council of Nicaea, that they were doing so under divine inspiration, when in reality a lot of what they did was compromising because of the age. They had to compromise a whole bunch of dates and events because they were trying to reunite the peoples of the Roman Empire, which were being divided by the Catholics, or the Christians, who were followers of Christ, clearly, and the Pagans, who still believed in their polytheistic ideas. Now, if we look at things that were decided at the Council of Nicaea, for example, let's just look at dates of holidays. They coincide, almost always, with very pagan ideas. Let's take Easter. Easter is on the first full moon after the vernal equinox, which is a pagan festival, the coming of spring. And even the word Easter comes from Estir, a Norse goddess whose symbols are rabbits and eggs. So that's where the Easter bunny came from. She is the goddess of fertility, and she's also the goddess of the moon. Or a goddess of the moon. That is her planet and her time. Her moon segmented time is the full moon, which is why Easter is on the first full moon after the vestral equinox. Isn't that slightly peculiar? But even putting that aside, we have All Saints' Day, the Day of the Saints, basically, is November 1st, which is the day after the Samhain and the first day of the Celtic New Year. Moving on into the more, not strange, but the more bizarre coincidence, if you will. If we take Christmas, the day of Christ's birth, December 25th, it is the day of the new sun. Which this is talked about also a little bit in the Zeitgeist circle, which the solstice, or the winter solstice, the day that is darkest because the sun is lowest on the horizon, happens around the 21st or the 22nd, depending on the year. 3 days later is the 25th, and the sun rests on the horizon for 3 days before it starts rising again. We have our resurrection. And on that day, the 25th, we have Christmas. Isn't that fabulous? So that alone should be enough to question is whether it's divinity or it was a sheer purpose. I mean, the Bible served a purpose. Bringing together all the books and all the ideas and making it into one coherent concept was Constantine and mostly the European Empire's way of keeping its people intact and preventing a civil war. That was the function of the Bible, which is why you see throughout it there is a lot of integration of pagan ideas and concepts. Candle masses, all that, very pagan. And I just really want to make that point. This isn't to religious zealots, because those people will invent anything. I mean, they think fossils are planted by the devil, so whatever. But this is for people who don't know about the subject or are unaware. That is the actual historical information that I'm giving you.